Okay. Well, welcome to the meeting. And so, what are you guys up to this week? How was your week? Who wants to go first?
Whatever, I can do it.
Okay.
So basically, in this week, we were talking about the plotting, right?
Yeah.
Like last week, I was just going to do some plots with Kravis and Krangle libraries. They were fun, so useful, and I mean, pretty. It was looking pretty good, the documentation for the libraries. But the point is, when I've looked, so this week I've done looking a little bit deeper inside the whole thing, how they are, or maybe how they're written, like what they're produced. And it came out that I just, I was fixing bugs here and there to make it compatible with Windows, the whole story. And then I noticed some chunk of code in Kravis library, so basically the one that's used to connect R to the Kotlin implementation, is that there is a chunk which says that we launch exactly user being local R in a Linux style pathway, and it's kind of hard coded. And it's also a thing that Bash terminals use to make this to produce these commands and to run these commands to open the R. And the R path is also strictly restricted to the Linux implementation. And so that was the point. I just discovered it the day before yesterday. That was the point that, of course, I can do little about, running the R through this Kravis library to visualize, to produce the plots on my Windows machine. And so I've decided for a time being, of course I could do some PR or maybe just change the code and propose some changes, think about how we can we extend it to be able to produce plots for Windows as well and to make Windows CMD commands. But I've just decided to pick this Xchart library, so another one, and produce some plots with this library for a time being, maybe.
Okay.
So that's what I've done. I've also done looking into the Jupyter, like how do I do Jupyter documentation with Kotlin. It's also pretty actual because I maybe be able to analyze some data just using some notebook, without having to run the codes all the time from the big project and compile it all the time. And I've also fixed some bugs there. So I was able to run some part of it on Windows, but then also some other part came. And so, it's also not really that good, that very compatible with Windows. That's what I'm trying to say. So basically, this week I've done a lot of bugs fixing and, finding out what and how to use in a technical sense, what works, what does not work. Was pretty boring at some time, but I guess I figured it out now. So I've produced the histogram. I was successful to produce histogram of, vehicle speeds distribution at some time point.
Okay.
With the 6th rating. And I've also done some tests, just to make code a little bit more sustainable. So that's, test is always good.
Yeah.
That's what we don't know.
You have something you can share?
And also, I can. It's a big startup maybe, but I don't know. Also, one important thing is that I've prepared for the demo day. I don't know if I've told you about this, but my university, on the 23rd of July, we have a demo day where students present their projects they are doing this summer.
Okay.
At our Faculty of Informatics, right? And so, the guy who is in charge for that, he responded to me and said that it's fine that I'm presenting, and he will give me the slot. And so I've just revisited, the whole simulation, how, my old presentation on Google Docs, I basically found it still okay to show it this way.
Yeah.
I'm going to present next week the project on my Faculty for Informatics at the Technical University of Munich.
Oh, good, yeah.
So let's see, maybe we get some technical feedback. Maybe they also get us some ideas what plots would be, what they would like to see in these plots. maybe what changes to algorithm would they like to see?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was also a thing this week.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to see you're getting some feedback, like, more general feedback. Like, so it's just like a group of people from around the university in different fields, or?
Yeah, I guess, well, they would be mostly computer scientists.
Yeah.
I must say. But we also have a pretty powerful AI group and AI tradition, as far as it seems. Okay. So I was on a lecture yesterday from this AI group of the Technical University of Munich, and it turned out that they have, that's basically was their 50th jubileum. So that was 50th anniversary of this group, I mean.
Okay.
So they exist for 50 years now. Just this AI thing on my university.
Yeah.
So I guess there will be also some people who really also dig this machine intelligence and artificial intelligence thing.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and if just quickly you were talking about showing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thing, I'll just quickly do it. Share my screen. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Fine. You should be able to see my screen now. Is it so?
Actually, let me see. I think it's sharing under a different window.
A different window.
Yeah, just on my end, it's different, but I got it. Yeah, I have it now.
So yeah, so basically there is this, well, it's called score histogram, but I should fix that. So what we see there is just, I was researching a way how to do these plots. It's actually, it's actually a swing plot, and now I get this bug that sometimes it's a black screen, which is not that good, and I have to research it. But basically, yes, the way is, I guess the way is right. So that's what we do score histogram, using the 6-chart library.
So it just pops out from the eye up there, information.
I'm sorry?
It pops out from the information icon at the top.
Exactly. So now I've just done this way basically that's not an end plot, it's a beginning one. So I've researched the way how to do it. I've built a Java J frame in a JX frame. It was like the whole story, but now, so the plot is not itself not very meaningful, but it's basically the X coordinate distribution of all the speeds in the current tick across all the vehicles. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it's done. Yeah.
So it looks like you have more or less, it's sort of like...
It's sort of normally distributed, yeah.
Yeah, it's more or less normally distributed. What does it mean when you have the outliers, though? Like you have a couple of very, very low speeds and one very high speed category.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess that comes from that's the objects are being randomly distributed now, and probably this randomly distribution is basically Gaussian in itself. Okay. That's what I can speculate on.
So it's just like randomly distributed. Okay, and then I guess you wouldn't know that, but I was wondering if there might be selection for different speeds eventually, like if you were to use that as a fitness function, like write a fitness function for vehicle speed.
Yeah, so basically my fitness function, as it's defined now, we are in the first epoch, and what we see now is that, well, I should fix the x-axis because we can't really see anything there yet. Yeah, but it's basically they're selected for speed. That's right.
Okay. Yeah, and then they're okay, so that's the next epoch, or?
So they're basically on this histogram now, we should see some higher speeds and some higher values for the distribution as we've seen it in the previous epoch. because I select for the biggest speed, so it's for the most active vehicle. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. And they should initially be randomly distributed. So I guess that's what you were showing me before, or is that like?
Yeah, it was the first epoch.
Yeah.
Just vehicles are being randomly distributed, so they start position at random. Walked objects are also random, so that's pretty random thing now.
Oh, good. Yeah, and then you have. So each epoch it's going to update. You can check the information icon, and then you can get an output of the histograms.
What I'm pretty much going to do is also like they have a way to do some live plots, right? So the idea of it is, I'm just showing the documentation. You see something like this, like real-time bubble chart.
Yeah.
So exactly, and that would be, of course, very beautiful if we would have like a separate frame where we can just see all the time. We can see this histogram of vehicles distribution, and I think it's pretty much doable. So just an event, so it's technically implementable, and I think that's what I'm going for in the next step to this plot.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? Should I do it or should I leave it how it is now?
Well, if it's not too technically challenging, it would definitely be a good addition to the interface. I mean, if it's going to be like a huge pain, I wouldn't do it. But I think you can probably figure that out when you're doing it. Like if it's going to be, yeah. So like,
yeah, definitely. But how it looks now, it's not that much of a pain.
Yeah, and it's like you get you can get the refresh function, but it would look better if it had like if you could do that, if you could have the dynamic updating.
Okay.
Is there a way to output these data to like a CSV file or something?
Well, I guess so. Sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, like just in terms of if you were to like run the simulation for like say 500 epochs and you wanted to get the data and plot it outside of the program, because you want to get a longer term view of the statistics and maybe play around with them a bit. Is that something that's built in, or you'd have to build it in?
So basically, yeah. I mean, it's pretty much doable, I guess.
Yeah.
If you think it's really worth it, and if you think that the statistics are posteriori important and can be posteriori analyzed, sure, I can do it.
Yeah, I think that would be important, just because if you're using it for research or even for education, you would probably want that to have that as well.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So I'm putting this in Trello board.
Okay.
You mean just export? Should I just dumbly export all the data that I plot?
Yeah. I think like large. Yeah, just every bit of data that's generated, to just be able to put it into some sort of CSV or some other format where you can just then take it and put it into into like a database or an Excel sheet or something.
Okay, so for that I also like a pretty thing that you pretty notice in the code base is that I'm kind of have to define some data scheme. So you know how variables are called, that they are consistent across the whole simulation, that you kind of understand what these whole metrics are, like speed, distribution of vehicles, I don't know, some statistics. So I'm putting this as well.
Okay.
Just not to get confused of the inconsistency of the names and positions and maybe objects. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So that looks good. Are there other things that other variables that you're collecting data on, or is that the main, in terms of your fitness function, what are you evaluating?
Well, yeah, the fitness function now is still the same, so it's still just evaluating the speed of vehicles in the past two steps.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because of course, we can think about doing it the other way, but then it's pretty. What I can do is just to save more steps. You know, just have like 5 or 6 steps back, and records of speed or maybe movement vectors that vehicles have been going through, and then just evaluates their fitness based on like more steps in behind. So basically then I can, of course, I have a bigger trajectory and geometrically just a bigger path, which I can analyze maybe with some other metrics than just, I wouldn't then add this vectors, but instead of it, I will maybe, also look at the angle which vehicle has been moving through, or maybe, which figure it was, maybe how big was the area that is covered by this figure, so to say. Connecting beginning spot and the end spot,
Yeah.
The path, and then just evaluating the area. That would be also a thing, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be like not a trajectory, but like an exploration space. So
exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would be good.
Yeah. Okay. And also a thing that I wanted to talk about, the last one probably. Just now, I've been talking with my fellow who also has done some agent-based simulation, and he was talking about something called spatial distribution of objects. So he asked me how do I distribute all the objects that we have, and I said, well, it's just random, I just use a random generator. And he said, well, do you maybe use or do you consider using some spatial distribution? And I don't really know what it is. Like, do you maybe know some good reads on it, or like how we can use it?
Yeah, so like what they do in a lot of spatial cognition experiments is, the idea of the experiment isn't to like just find things at random; it's to find certain locations in the space. So there are like distributions for spatial statistics that you can use. It's just basically taking like maybe something that's non-random and putting it into a two-dimensional space, like some exponential distribution or something, and then distributing the objects according to that. But then other ways you can do it is just to actually have things like have locations. Like if you think of a map, things aren't like randomly placed. They're kind of, you have like, when you navigate in a space, you think of things like a clump of trees, or like a building, or like an intersection of two streets. And so those aren't random. They're, specific locations. So, another thing that is maybe interesting is to have like, a world where it's structured, where you have, like, maybe concentric circles, or you have like, landmarks that exist in certain places, and then it's like you have things in relation to one another. So, and then they use these in spatial cognition experiments to see how, basically looking for wayfinding abilities. So the organism would see things in the environment and encode a memory for them. And so they'd use that as a way to like find their way around the environment instead of just exploring it randomly. Because what happens with resources distributed randomly is they move randomly, maybe, or they may move to, they won't necessarily go to the far end of the environment directly. They'll maybe find their way through the environment gradually. In some cases where animals are foraging for food, they use something called a levee flight, which is where they will explore a little patch of space and then move maybe across the landscape and explore another patch of space randomly and then move back across. So it's like they explore these patches, but they go long distances in between the patches. So, I mean, there are a lot of different potential spatial distributions you can use. And, in this case, I think maybe the wayfinding approach might be the best way to look at, to try to maybe give that option so that you can have like a structured environment where the vehicles can explore instead of just having a random environment.
Mm-hmm. All right. I will look into it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, it would just be probably be something pretty simplistic. Like you might have like a cross of stimuli, or maybe like a pattern of like boxes or rings. There's some structure to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, it's also on the Trello board now.
Okay, that's good.
Fine.
Okay. So, anything else about Ziyi? Do you have anything to comment on?
Yeah, so I'm curious about how, Stefan, how do you do your say the animation? Because Python's problem is about the speed, and there's like problematic if you want to like generate an animation like a video file. That's going to take a long time, so that is not realistic. So I'm just wondering, how do you like do this animation, in real time?
In real time. Yeah, that was.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Just finish it.
So, like, what is the present? Say, which part do you pre-calculate it, and which part do you like during the animation?
Right. So, what you mean exactly with pre-calculated? So, like, what do I calculate during the animation? You mean, and what things are kind of persistent there?
Yeah.
Right. So basically, during my animation, I calculate just the speeds, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening? Maybe I'll even find it in code to tell you exactly. So kind of the structure of it, I will maybe just show you the chunks and explain what's there. Just a sec. Yeah, there it is. You should see in my screen now. Is it so?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So look, we have this updated render function, where I kind of have this graphics element of JavaFX. And in this function, this tick animation, I'm basically drawing a thing called a timeline, which is a special JavaFX and TornadoFX objects that allows us to do animation called keyframe in the interval milliseconds. So my interval is usually set to like 1000 through, I don't know, maybe frames per second, like 30 frames per second. So we have like some number, some milliseconds. Right, so I'm doing these keyframes, and just in each keyframe for each vehicle, I launch this function calculate current update, which basically updates bit of the vehicle. And then I'm just, I calculate new coordinates. So you see it here, I calculate new coordinates of the vehicle, put it roughly, just getting the coordinate now and adding its speed in this tick to this coordinate. And I'm saying, okay, that would be the end coordinate in this keyframe, so in my animation. And so in this interval milliseconds, I will move from this coordinate to the other coordinate based on calculated vehicle speed. So what I'm doing there is just calculate the new speed, It's pretty heavy function, right? So if you think about that, I have a factor, so this world object collection, they are kind of some 10, maybe 20, maybe even more objects. And I'm saying, well, for each vehicle, I'm going to percept effects of all the effectors. So kind of first I launched this percept function, which calculates each object's effect on each sensor. And so if we like kind of, let's put it like this, I have 100 vehicle and 10 objects. Well, that means if each vehicle has 2 sensors, we have 200 sensors across all the vehicles, across all the 100 vehicles. And for each 200 sensors, we multiply it with 10 to calculate the effect of all the objects in the world on this particular sensor, and we have 200 of them, so it's 2,000 times whatever on this function effect and distance, right?
I see.
And that's what I do first, and then, well, there's also, we shouldn't forget this mapping. So basically what we see here is that we kind of process our signals that we've percepted. We say, okay, that's the sensor input that we have, and then we use our brain that vehicle has, which is basically a neural network. Now it's 5 to 5, so it has 5 nodes. We propagate the signal that we get from the sensor input. So that's also a workload. To the 2,000 functions that we have, we also should process it with a neural network called brain. And then we kind of have this pure speed. Well, then I also calculate a little bit repulsion from walls, and I return the end speed and say, okay, that's my kind of, it's pretty much an end of day. So that's what I get in this term. That's how it looks. Maybe, you know, so it's pretty a heavy load, right? Why does it work? I guess because I'm doing this whole thing on a separate thread. So I'm not doing it on a visual thread, but instead of it, JavaFX forces me to do it on a separate thread in background mode. So basically what I'm running is a thing called, is a function called run async. It was somewhere here. Oh yeah, right. So basically I launch an event, but it's pretty much the same. So I launch an event on a background thread, which is not the visual thread. So I separate these two things. And so I calculate the whole update in the background thread, and then just return the results with a special event on the foreground thread, where I just visualize the results when they're ready. So maybe, like, my idea would be, I don't know how it's in Python, but probably you can try look into, you know, this background threading and separate threads thing, and also try to calculate the whole updates that you have in the background thread, and then just visualize them on the foreground thread. Maybe that would be something that is worth considering. Because I can imagine, like, you know, Python, well, it's maybe like a little bit slower than Java in the middle, or in like middle case, but still it should be possible to visualize there.
Yes. That's a good suggestion. Thanks.
Sure.
Well, that was pretty good. Thank you. Ziyi, do you have an update for us? What have you done this week?
Yeah, so this week I'm basically trying to Pythonizing my Python code, because Python is slow, and also I have an essay and 2 midterms, so yeah, I'm kind of busy this week.
Oh, that's okay.
So and also I'm very new to Python. Before I just like implemented the very, very small functions of Python, so got a lot of bugs and solved a lot of bugs. in those Saison codes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. So why don't we move to the board? So let's see. Let me get the link for the board. One. Put it in the chat here. So if you go to that repo again and you go to projects tab, you'll go to group meetings review, and you have the list of issues in progress and to do. We have a lot in the done category. We've already done those, so we won't review them. Let's start with in progress and go to the left. So, we got someone else here. Jesse wants to come in. Okay. Hi, Jesse. How are you? Good. Okay. So we're reviewing the board right now. If you want to join in. So let's see. Let's start with in progress. Checking Stefan's Trello board. That was for me. I've been doing that off and on. So it's he's got a nice Trello board there. Number 34, create a list of data export and persistence attributes. So I think we were talking about that with Stefan in his project. Creating. So let me see. I can't remember what we saved on this. Oh yeah, we did actually make some notes here. So let's see. So we actually had a list of 3 things. Let me see if I can put them in the chat here. Oh, something happened to Stefan. He left the meeting. Why don't we wait for him to get back? Because I'm kind of addressing this issue. I'm asking him a question. So, Jesse, how are things this weekend? I sent you some readings on Slack. Oh, good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no problem. We'll add we can add things if you want. Yeah. Well, why don't we come back to the issue? So let's see. Let me find something that's not Stefan related. Let's see. We were talking about discussing relevant scientific questions, and so this is the one where it's kind of open-ended, but it's if you have things that when you see things going on in the meetings and they're of interest to you, you might jot down a question that you have that you'd like to answer. So I don't know if people have thought more about that, but maybe we can discuss that a little bit. Here comes Stefan. Okay.
All right.
Welcome back.
Yeah, sorry, there's some maintenance of my VLAN, apparently, which I didn't know about.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're back as your original, with your original name, your own name, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice thing then.
Okay.
Lost something, found something.
Yeah. So we were kind of going over the board, and I skipped down for since you dropped out to discussing relevant scientific questions, and I just wanted to remind people that we were going to keep doing that. And I don't know I don't want to put people on the spot, but I just wanted to remind people that we were doing that. We're still kind of thinking through questions. Is there a place where we can assemble these questions? Like if you have like something you want to jot down, is maybe like in the Slack channel or on GitHub? What do you think?
Well, for me, Slack was fine and still fine to share papers. It's kind of a nice thing that we have this group chat.
Yeah.
So I find Slack does its thing.
Yeah.
In this case.
Yeah, and I think Slack or GitHub. So if you want to do that, there's an issue on this board, number 21. So if you want to put it in the comment section of this board, you can go ahead and do that. If you have just a specific question you can think of, and again, it doesn't have to be like really well formed. It's just something that you're thinking about. Or we could, put it on Slack, and then it'll get transferred over to the board, and then we can discuss it in the meeting. So Jesse has a comment. I may add a task about social robotics and about the everyday good regulator theorem. Everybody, yeah, the what do they call it? The every good regulator theorem. That's the one that I actually sent Jesse a paper on it, and I put it in the main channel so that everyone should have access to it. So there's in cybernetics, there's this thing called the every good regulator theorem, and it's a sort of I don't know if you've ever heard of control theory, where like people talk about feedbacks all the time. That's sort of one of the main, sort of the original. It's a philosophy of control theory, maybe. It's called cybernetics, but a lot of things came out of cybernetics. So there's a lot in this paper. Kind of goes through the theorem and walks people through, like what was being thought about when the theorem was written. It was Conant and Ashby, and Ashby was, of course, not very well known in cybernetics, but he was very productive, and he wrote a lot of papers on like the brain and cybernetic control and things like that. I mean, this was during the 50s and 60s, so he, it may look a bit dated now, but he had some pretty good ideas. So, yeah, we can add a task later if you want, Jesse. But I'll make a note of this. And then we can come back to it. All right. So again, if you have any questions you're thinking about, even if they're just like kind of thoughts and not very well formed, please put them in Slack or GitHub. So why don't we return to the issue that I was talking about when Stefan dropped off, and that was the create list of data export and persistence attributes. So in your presentation, you were talking about speed as a thing that your fitness function was dealing with, and we have this list of 3 things here that we came up with, I think, last week. So agent ID, number, genotype, fitness at each iteration, and number of nodes and network at each iteration. So I think these were things you were thinking of having as outputs.
You mean diagnostic outputs, so the thing we debug on and maybe make some thoughts on it.
I think that's what we're
referring
to. Yeah.
Okay. I should fetch it to the Trello board, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, that seems reasonable, at all means. Which issue was that, if I can ask?
That was number 34.
34.
Yeah.
34.
And I updated the comment to reflect the speed part component of that. I actually do like having the speed graphs that you can just look up, like dynamically. But yeah, I mean, we want to have some things like this, just not necessarily real-time updates, but just as outputs. like that you can save later.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. It just makes it useful to actually like do an analysis on the data. So that's in progress. Let's see. I have a couple of comments in the discussion here after, which I missed after Jesse. Okay, so Jesse had another comment. Also, in reality, I'll make another task for setting up GitHub for the project because I haven't put in enough up there yet. That's a bit outdated. I'm getting ready to make regular updates. So yeah, if you the only it's pretty easy. You can I would issue a pull request on the repo. So if you fork the repo and then you upload your stuff to your repository, you can issue a pull request, and we can do I can incorporate that into the main repo, and it'll be pretty easy. Let's see. Z had a comment. Sorry, could you tape the keyword you mentioned about the control theory? So I guess cybernetics, every good regulator theorem. And then Conant and Ashby. Those are like basically the keywords. So these are Conant and Ashby are the authors for those are the two main people who came up with the every good regulator theorem. And the every good regulator theorem was one of the main contributions to cybernetics. And so there's a lot in the cybernetics area. It was kind of formed the basis for a lot of computer science. Oh yeah, definitely. So it formed a lot of the basis for control theory, and then computer science even, and cognitive science. So it was like, these people came together around the middle of the last century, and they really kind of thought about like how the brain might work, and they came up with things like neural networks and cybernetics, and a lot of the stuff that we think about today in terms of computer science came out of that little period of time, and people like working on just thinking about the problems and coming up with models for how the brain worked and how to process information. So and then okay, let's see. Okay, I think we're caught up on the chat, so why don't we go back to the board? Let's see how much where we are here. Okay, we had number 31, research agent mapping, perception, and representation of environmental space. So that's I think that's assigned to Jesse. So that's something I just want to remind you of that issue. Yeah, that's in progress for sure. So that's still in progress. Number 24, find conference funding through professional organization. I provided a list of, like a link to a list of organizations for funding. Try some of them if you think, they might be suitable. I like the fact that you're presenting in your home department this week. I think that's always good to take advantage of things you don't have to travel to. And so, it's a good opportunity for feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I've applied to a bunch of organizations that I could find in databases and that were suitable for my, for goals that I pursue and my status, my academic status and stuff like that. They also an interesting thing. Still, are there some odds to get the grant from the INCF side? What do you think?
Maybe. I mean, it's going to be pretty competitive.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
That's why I recommended. I thought what my reading was is that everyone and everyone probably should get one, but I don't know. They probably figure. I don't think that many people would claim it anyway. So,
Exactly. So when do you know? When do we know for sure the results? Like who gets this grant?
Oh, I think it's after this program is over. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was my understanding. But yeah, so do you, I was wondering if you wanted to make an issue for the meeting you're having this week, or if you wanted to wait until you had, like, you got some feedback to make an issue. Do you need to review your slides, or do you think you're okay on that?
Well, so I've looked on the presentation that I kind of, that I was basically delivering and on the group meeting that we had, where I was presenting my project. Well, I found it still pretty descriptive for what we are doing.
Okay. Yeah.
You can maybe revisit it if you want, like maybe add some comments and stuff. I can surely make an issue for that and also attach the link to the presentation.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I will do that.
All right. And then we talked about number 21, scientific questions, share resources and implementation ideas. Kind of doing that today with Stefan was talking to Ziyi about his Python code, so that's good. And then find data references or GitHub repository. So I think I linked to a couple of new data sets. If not, I will. There's some more connectome data that came out for the C. elegans male, and then there was one that came out recently for a very small connectome in like an insect species. So it's like, I don't know, a couple hundred neurons in that nervous system. So I can keep at it. I can't remember where it is in the repo, but there's a folder. It says connectome data or data sets, and I'm kind of putting links in there for different data sets that exist. And I don't know how useful it would be to any of you, but it might be something to, look into, explore. It might, provide interesting ideas. I also put a paper up for Jesse to read, but I recommend all of you read it. It was called something like How Can We Understand a Neural Network? And it's a new paper that came out, and basically it talks about how do we understand what a neural network is doing. So it's an interesting paper. Is there anything in Slack yet about the new person joining the lab? So yeah, I might mention that right now. We have a new person who's joining the group. All right, Ankit Gupta, and he's I don't know. He's been on Slack. He introduced himself, but he probably will make it to the next meeting. He was a applicant for GSOC, and he did some pretty good simulations of Braitenberg Vehicles, and I have his repo forked to the main orthogonal research GitHub. So he did some good simulations, and he wanted to kind of work it into something that he could get funded. Oh no, he's not there here today. I think he's getting settled in still. But yeah, so he'll probably be here next week. So we'll welcome him then. We'll get a little bit of an update on his work and everything. So, and then let's get back to the board. Number 27, develop ways to evaluate movement to cues generated by network. And this is for Z. I think it was a distribution of movement of the vehicles. I don't know if that's something that you made progress on or you're still thinking about, or... Okay, no progress on that this week, so that's still in progress. And then we're done with the current in progress. Now we can move on to to-do. So, all right, good. Stefan made a great presentation for our NCF demo number 33. That's to-do, and we'll move that into in progress when we get have like a draft presentation sort of put together. It's kind of there, but we want to make sure that we go over it pretty carefully. It's like when you're presenting to people, you go over and then you find you have typos in your presentation. So that's why we want to have multiple people look at it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Work on grammar and coding. That's kind of not. That's not. No progress has been made on that. That's still to do. Create list of visualization tools and solutions. That's something that I just put up in. There's a. I don't know where it is in the repo. But there is now a README with a list of visualization tools, with graph visualization tools, and like bivariate network visualization tools, and then also tools to make graphs like bivariate graphs and things like that. And they're just largely open source platforms, links to different projects, and they should be somewhat implementable. I put those up so that people could maybe have some options if they're interested in. No problem about progress. That's fine. In case they're interested in doing a certain thing and they don't know where to go, I put those references up there. So I don't know if I put a link in the. Oh yeah. Yeah, but it's up in the repo as a README. I think actually I put a link to it in the Slack channel. And now number 22, this is for Stefan and maybe for Ziyi and Jesse as well. Defining fitness function in the context of behavior. So as I understand it from Stefan, he created his fitness function is based on movement of the vehicles. And so he's got that up and working.
Yes, I mean, even say it better, I've defined this function on the evaluation of two speeds in two turns, in this turn and kind of the previous turn. So right now I'm just putting the vectors together and I'm saying that my fitness function is the bigger one, the vehicle with the biggest movement, or which is fastest, which moves a lot in comparison to others.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's good. It kind of gives you something to select on. So we'll see how it works. It should work. I mean, based on the histograms you were showing me, there's, it looks like it might work pretty well over long periods of the simulation. And then the last one is review Holland's paradigm, which I think is pretty much still to do. That's not really something we focused on. So are there any, we mentioned a couple issues that we might add later, but are there any things we'd want to add now that we can just think of? Any additional things?
I just wanted to say that this week and the next week, I kind of have 2 exams that I would still pass, I guess.
Okay.
Just to free my time completely for the August, where I could work lots. So maybe I would do a little bit less in the next 2 weeks just to prepare for exams and pass them good. But then of course in August I will have really free time a lot, and I will be working maybe even more than 40 hours a week. Okay. I would be able to do it. So.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's fine.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we're all caught up on the issues, and I think everyone's doing pretty well here. We're having good discussions, and we've got some good demos, and looks like we're doing pretty well here. Thank you everyone for attending. Anyone have any last minute comments, questions? Okay, yeah, Jesse, you can present a paper, in the next couple weeks. Let me know. I'll put it on the schedule when you're ready. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess I have a question. Totally forgot. There's this evaluation that is upcoming next week, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, the GCLC one. Is there anything you wish me to do before that, or maybe during the evaluation that I should know about?
No, like I said last time, you're pretty much, you're gonna pass. You're doing pretty well. I'll probably add some things. I always have to add in how you can improve, and then I usually use that as a way to kind of frame the next part of the project. So, I'll give you some feedback. I'll give you some things to improve on. Don't take them
Okay,
personally.
sure.
It's just kind of like, and yeah, and then I guess they're really antsy about people getting them in on time because I got a couple emails about it. So like just fill it out as soon as you can, and you might not get a threatening email from Google. I don't know, but
Sorry, you mean just doing the evaluation on time?
yeah, just they give you like 3 days to do it, which is a little bit tight, but
All right.
yeah, but
This-
I think they open up on the 24th, or at least for the mentors. So yeah, I would do it right away and just turn it in. Yeah. So, and there's no special instruction as far as I know.
Okay, thank you. I'll be aware of it.
Yeah.
I will. Yeah.
So Z, you have anything to add before we go? Do you like to ask any questions or any comments? Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for attending. Have a good week. See you on Slack or email or whatever, and talk to you next week.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Till next week.